have such sights to show you. We're Poppin the Scary horror podcast here. I'm your host, Coale, and with me, as always, I have my good friend and co-host, Aaron. Hello. Hey.
Sorry, I had to add a little scream to the intro. Say a little scream to
Oh my gosh,
the intro.
I am grimacing so hard right now. Okay. Yeah, so we're just gonna jump right into Scream 2, not even be like, what's up, bruh?
Yeah. We can do some chit-chat. Come on,
No.
What's your favorite color, man?
Black.
Oh. Well, that's
Just
actually
like Ghostface cloak, am I right? Yeah, so we're going to be watching Scream 2 today, and Aaron, again, what I have found myself doing with these sequels is just kind of asking, where you last left off and what your kind of aspiration is for sequels, and whenever it comes to the first Scream, you thought it was okay.
That's true. I thought there were aspects of it that were greater than other aspects, and one of the greatest aspects of the first Scream is that it's a fun time, man. It's silly, it's a little goofy, it's a little slapstick, man. Ghostface killer, he be slipping and sliding, getting beat up. He be doing some funny things though too, and he also be doing some murdering. So I mean, I'm excited. Without spoiling too much, I guess what happened in the first one. I'm curious to see who the Ghostface killer is in this one, and what happens from there. But I mean, I assume some more hijinks at a high school. I don't know. It'd be cool.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it because, like I said, without talking too much about the first one, since in case you haven't watched it, click on this link that I'm gonna throw up on the screen right here, or whatevs. Yeah. But yeah, definitely check it out. I really love the first Scream. I thought there was like a lot of inventive stuff they did. Sidney is my favorite Scream Queen there. Ghostface, one of my favorite slashers. And again, just like kind of Aaron mentioned, it's like kind of different where it feels like completely one-sided there, just because Ghostface gets wrecked a lot of the time there. So it's been a while since I've seen the second one. I watched it last whenever I was binging all of them whenever I was watching it the first time. Like I was like, I got like the trilogy like on Blu-ray and I just watched it back to back to back. That was before they made 4, then 5, and now they're coming out this week with 6. Yeah, so lots of screaming there. I'm curious to see what I think, because all I have is vague recollection of like certain moments. Aside from that, I'm very curious to see, like, after kind of the glitz and glamour of being amazed by Scream has gone away, how it's going to hold up on a second time viewing. So, without further ado, we will be back to give the boogaloo after Scream 2.
I'm screaming right now. I'm really screaming.
This morning, I woke up with this feeling I didn't know how to deal with. And so I just decided to myself, I'd hide it to myself.
I don't like where this is going.
I think I love you.
Don't do this.
I think I love you.
No.
I think I love you, so what am I so afraid of?
Please, lady, you don't understand. You don't know what you're doing here.
A love there is no cure for. I think I love you. Isn't that what life is made of?
Well, if you can't beat him,
I think better still, if you really love me, 'cause I think I love you.
And we are back from watching Scream 2. Yes, 2 screams. We both were screaming, so...
True.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not sure for the right reasons, though.
Right.
Yeah. So thoughts, comments, concerns.
As my biology teacher used to say, thoughts, comments, rude, crude remarks. Yeah. No, it was a movie. No, it was definitely. I was looking for the funny, slapstick, wacky hijinks time, and it to deliver that for sure. So, I mean, it was enjoyable. There was some wacky stuff, a lot of stuff that didn't make any fucking sense, a lot of strange music choices, a lot of little inconsistencies, but it was definitely campy. It was definitely early 2000s, and it was a good time.
I'm glad you had a good time, but
Did you not have a good time? We were laughing.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, definitely I enjoyed it more watching it with you. It's just funny because, you know, it's like whenever you're younger and you get excited about something and you just binge a lot of it, you tend to just put like your criticisms to the side whatever. Watching it through the second time definitely does not hold up to the first time I watched it before, but you are right. There are like nuggets and moments and everything else where I'm like, okay, that's funny, that's good, whether it be on purpose or not, sort of thing. There's stuff like that. It's just comparing it to the first film, I just feel like the inconsistencies start to add up way too much there.
True.
Because that, and there is not a lot of Ghostface in this film.
Yeah, honestly, not. Yeah, because he's always like hidden whenever he's going for kills and stuff. You know what I mean? And then he pops out right when the knife goes in or whatever. But
and even then, I felt like it wasn't as many kills, or but maybe it's because I never felt like the kills were super over the top. There was like a few, but aside from that, it was very more mundane.
Right, and I feel like there either wasn't a lot of suspense behind some of the kills, or the ones that did have suspense, it wasn't like they didn't see Ghostface. It wasn't like him chasing him, you know what I mean? It was like, where is he, you know?
Yeah, and you know, we'll dive into the nitty-gritty. I mean, I already have my thoughts about it, but I'll just, for people at home who do not know the synopsis of Scream 2, I'm just going to go over that. So, Scream 2 is a follow-up to Scream, in which the new movie Stab, based on the Woodsboro killer, is coming out in theaters. And coincidentally, around this time, our good old survivor, Sidney Prescott, is off to college.
True.
However, things aren't quite as they seem, with Ghostface appearing once again to hunt down Sidney and the rest of the crew from Woodsboro. So, I mean, plot-wise, makes sense. And that's like one of the bits of nuggets that I really like about this universe, that they took like an incident like this and they made a movie out of it.
Yeah.
I really think that's an interesting, funny way to look at the universe there, and just kind of comparing it to like real life, you know, with like movies, how they're coming out. And I like the commentary, little jokes and thoughts about it. I think that's always one of the things they always have fun with, is just kind of talking about movies. Like, it's definitely a movie for movie nerds, especially.
Yeah, and especially horror movie nerds. And I just love that beginning where the whole intro scene is like a spoof of the intro scene of the first Scream. Like, it's because they're showing that fictionalized in their universe, or like, you know, your movie depicted version of the first scene in Scream on the screen. Like, they're literally watching first Scream, they just call it Stab in the movies, and then they get stabbed in the movies, and it's like the same sort of cold open but it becomes a sort of commentary on what the last one was and what horror movies are in general. And then they really lace that in throughout the movie, with like, because there's a couple guys in the film class and they're just talking about films, and the sequels are never as good as the first ones, and blah, blah. So I guess they were onto something there. But it's I do love that they are talking about media generally throughout the movie, but especially horror movies, and it correlates directly to what's happening in their lives.
Yeah. And so it's like moments like that I memorized, and I remembered. I'm like, I remember the movie theater scene, because I was like, oh, that's smart. And then I remember Randy talking about the, the rules and,
Mm-hmm.
follow-ups and how it works and just kind of conversations, and it's like, that's the stuff I remember. However, the stuff that I didn't remember is for probably good reasons
Yeah.
there, which we could dive into. But I mean, overall, I still think the idea of the story is good. It's good. It's solid. I like the little opportunities they take with it. However, whenever it gets to the resolution of the story, I feel like it's not as clean as the first one.
No, yeah.
I definitely feel like it's a lot more messy towards the end of the second one, and and I won't spoil it too much, but obviously listen to spoilers in order to see kind of what we thought didn't work later on there. But I
True.
mean, I feel like, there's definitely a lot of good moments throughout this film, but there's also a lot of moments, like just watching. And one of the things I do think suffer is the characters, both old and new for the most part. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just part of directing or something like that, where I feel like even, Neve Campbell, which I love her to death and everything, I felt like there'd be times whenever she was really good, and then other times where she's just completely flat there, and that really sucks. That really sucks, because I like her a lot as a character, as a survivor and everything there, but it's like whenever you're first introduced, I really love the way that, she's handling it. It's like she's getting all the prank phone calls of people trying to scare her with the Stab movie coming out, because, it's just something I can see doing. And she has caller ID, which in 97, definitely more modern. And she has the whole kind of like law represented about harassing people on the phone. I like that. And then there's maybe some tiny moments throughout the film where it's like, yeah, she's doing a good job. But then other times she's just very flat, very, very flat. And I just feel like her whole, and I'm not sure if it was the script or if it's Neve Campbell or both, I'm just torn because I want to love her performance, because I love her as a character, everything about her, from like Neve Campbell to Sidney, just everything. But this film, I was just like,
yeah. I absolutely agree. I feel like there's quite a few characters, honestly, that fall a little flat, and even some characters that were like the wacky comic relief characters in the other movies that also just kind of like underperformed. Like, I was excited to see Dewey again in this one because I forgot about Dewey, the derpy deputy, and he wasn't even really that derpy or that deputy. He was just kind of there in a bunch of the scenes and was like, "Hey, I'm Dewey."
Yes, that was another thing too. Like Dewey's character, I mean, it's like you could tell it's the same, but he's just mostly just, annoyed.
Yeah.
Because spoilers, but him and Gale Weathers are not on good terms whatsoever. But even then, like, he would have lines that would come out funny even though they weren't supposed to come out funny. Like, they're supposed to be serious. It was just kind of annoying a little bit there. I don't know. Again, it was just like very watered down comparatively to the first one.
Yeah.
There, where I just felt like, the people come in and are just like, oh yeah, just, you're the same characters and go. And I maybe, again, I'm not sure if it's the actors or the director there, because I will say, like, just to talk about it, I think the one character, and I don't know if you and I are on the same page, the one character, both new and old, who is bringing his A game is Jamie Kennedy as Randy. I feel like he just knew exactly how to read it and how to deliver it and just hit it out of the park in that regard, because I actually enjoyed seeing him more than I did Sidney.
Yeah,
there.
I do think Randy performed pretty well. Yeah.
He performed really well. He was delivering the dialogue exactly as fresh as he did the first time round, and kept that energy up. Which again, it's like nothing to sneeze at. It's like super important just to keep up that level of energy, just to keep going there. It's just kind of a shame that not the rest of the characters kind of continued that trend, to say the least. Yeah, because I don't know. It's like even Courtney Cox playing Gale Weathers. She's just again. It's like she had a bit of a character arc that then reverts again, where she's like, "Oh yeah, it's Gale Weathers trying to get the story, and everything." And I just feel like again she's just kind of playing it straight. She might be a little bit better because again she does show like a little more affection for Dewey, showing that they've had a past, I guess. But even then, it's like,
even that storyline seemed like it made sense at the beginning, and then I was hoping that they would, I see what they're trying to do. They're exploring conflict together, and they're gonna be brought closer together because of it, or whatever. But it really just seemed pretty stitched in, like really just the whole. It all seemed kind of phoned in, like, okay, well, here's the template, and there's a lot of aspects of this movie that did seem kind of, boilerplate like that, but...
Yeah, and it just kind of sucks, because, again, it just feels like, it's like the usual sequel you would think of, where it's just, like, a little more tired and... not as fresh, not as energetic there. Yeah. Even Roger Jackson, who does the voice of Ghostface, I feel like, he's doing just that there. He has like a couple of playful moments, but I still just felt like it was a little more empty.
Right.
A little bit, which sucks. It sucks because, there's just... I just wish everyone's... energy was up to play. Like, in all honesty, I felt like Jada Pinkett Smith and Omar Epps at the beginning of the film had more energy than the whole cast combined.
True.
Going into the movie theater, which it is important because they're the start of the movie, trying to start it off on the right foot. It's just after, they figure out that Ghostface is back, that's whenever everything starts to get mushy. And even whenever Ghostface does arrive, there's a couple of like good gags that he does. True. Like he does a sick chair flip there and other stuff. But even then, I feel like it's not choreographed as well as the first one.
No, it isn't. I do think there's like one or two scenes at the very beginning where you see Ghostface and he's actually chasing someone, and it has sort of that wacky, tripping over stuff vibe that I really enjoyed. And then you don't ever see it again really in the rest of the movie. There's a little bit, but there's not a lot of like creative, they're in this interesting place and they do this, like there was in the first movie where they're in a house and they use all kinds of things in their landscape to cause wacky things to happen or to cause interesting kills to happen or whatever. This one I felt it was like, they tried that a couple times and it was either just ridiculous or really obvious. Like there were several times where there's a character just standing next to an object that's obscuring the view and not looking behind them, and then Ghostface comes out and stabs them.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh, oops, or like... Even there's a time where Sidney is being protected by two deputies, and they're just like, we're gonna go look over here. You stand by that corner where we can't see anything, and nothing bad will happen. And then and then she gets surprised by someone. Oh, who would have saw that coming? And there's so many moments like that where, as an audience, it's just obvious to see what's coming, and sometimes that could work to add to suspense, but I feel like a lot of times in this one it kind of ruined it, where you're like, okay, all right, a little cheesy.
Yeah, It just sucks because I wasn't even prepared to like dunk on this movie per se. I was like, man, I don't remember a lot about this movie.
And I don't think it was awful. I think there's several
Yeah.
things about it that are redeeming.
Yeah.
I think there was a lot of creativity. I mean, I'm excited for spoilers to talk about some of the creative kills and stuff that I was like, that was cool. But yeah, for as many as there are those, there's probably twice as many that fall flat.
Yeah, and I don't know. I don't even feel like talking about the characters. I am so bummed after watching this film. And note, I don't hate this film. I'm just disappointed about it. That coming soon for the rating, whatever. Let's just get through the rest of the characters. There's a bunch of sorority girls.
Yeah, who cares about that?
Yeah, except for the fact it has Portia de Rose, or I always butcher her name.
Yeah.
She's married to Ellen DeGeneres, I think. Still, maybe need to confirm that. Was in Arrested Development as
I can't remember her name, but
no, it's not Lucille.
No, she's married to Tobias.
Tobias Funke, played by David Cross. Why the
Yes.
crap can I not remember her name for the life of me?
I am long since I've seen Arrested Development. She's in it. She plays a sorority girl.
Yeah, and
number
it was
two.
and it was distracting because I'm like, I think I know her from somewhere. I think I know her. Just looking through there.
What else is she from?
Yeah, what else?
I did not recognize her until you pointed out at the end of the movie, and I was like, oh, that is her.
Yeah, it just kept bothering me. And again, like Portia de Rossi, Lindsay Bluth. Okay, that's her name. I had to look it up, otherwise I was going to snap even more than what I am now. All right, I don't know. 2 other characters to mention. Let's mention the boyfriend,
Chad McChadson.
Yes, Chad McChadson, aka Derek Feldman, aka Jerry O'Connell. I don't know what to think about his character.
He's like he's the character that's shoot in to be like, this guy's the killer because
Yes.
he's too close, and then why was he in the house at this time or whatever?
It's like he's taking the place of like Billy Loomis with like how much they shadowed. Like, oh, is he the killer? Like
the 2 films they rhyme. That was my George Lucas impression.
I think it's pretty good. You just need to work on it a little longer. No, excuse me. I'm gonna go head back to Skywalker Ranch.
Excellent.
I will say, this mofo, Derek, had one of the scenes, and you might have seen me cringing during it, where I'm like, what is going on with this film?
Yeah. He was a pretty like straight man as a character, and he had a lot of moments that were a little cringe, I guess, but
yeah, definitely cringe both unintentionally and unintentionally.
True.
Yeah, it's like, it's fine, and I mean, this is no dissing on Jerry O'Connell, mind you. I feel like
Jerry O'Connell. I'm just kidding.
I feel like he is bringing his A game. He's like, okay, yeah, Scream 2. All right, let's go. Let's do this. I feel like this is
white, distractingly male.
I feel like this is more a script, how they wrote the character.
Yeah.
And I feel like I have issue with. So no dissing on Jerry. He brought his A game. So much of his A game. Too much of his A game.
He was in the movie a lot. For the amount of screen time Derek got, I don't think I ever really cared about him. even I feel like it was so obvious. I'm sorry, I guess this is a spoiler, but I feel like it was so obvious just from his introduction that what they were trying to do. It'll be like, he could be the killer, it could be him. And it's like, no, it's not. It's not.
They played that card heavy.
Yeah.
They just triple, quadruple, quintuple down on that. Just, you could be the killer, perhaps. Stay tuned.
+4, skip, They give you the Uno reverse.
I don't know who else to mention. Connor Weary's back from the first film.
True.
He's sus.
He is sus.
He's sus. He's like Mr. Nice Guy, but also very intimidating.
Who else is important? There's like a new girl that's like a reporter.
One that's fawning after her. Like, we're scrambling to talk about characters because, like, there's this character.
Yeah.
And that one too.
and there's like a new cameraman.
That sure is a new character back there in the background. Do you see him?
And there's the other dude in the film. They added a shitload of characters in, I feel like, so that they were like, oh, there's so many people it could be. It could be any of these people. And then at the end, whoa, it's the one that we didn't show on screen ever.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah, that's my biggest gripe. Anyways, let's talk about music. I'm done talking about characters. We could talk about characters, but it's like, yeah, they're there.
Music, I think, was unintentionally funny, and I, you know, I think there's a lot of things that were intentionally funny about this movie that you could that might go over some people's heads or whatever. I feel like a lot of the moments it was just like they were just picking the wrong music.
The music just sucks. It sucks. That's my critique.
There's one time where somebody dies and then they just start playing 90s alt rock, you know, like some 41 or some shit. I don't know what it was. It was just like really out of place. And then they cut to a party and it was supposed to be like a transition, but it was just really like made the death really unimpactful for the amount of time they set it up. And
oh my gosh.
I don't know. There's a lot of moments where they play this music that's supposed to be romantic, but it sounds like either cowboy western music or like maybe like free music that you download for like a porn game that you're making or something. Like, I don't know. A lot of it was a miss. There's a lot of miss.
Yeah, the music, like, I don't think there's really been a whole lot of music where I was just blatantly, this is bad.
Yeah.
This is bad. But there would just be so many times, like, I guess, I don't know what to call it, Gale and Dewey's theme, where, again, they have, like, baby piano playing, like, like it's Rugrats or something here. And I'm just like, I cannot even focus on what's going on with the scene. Oh, it's just...
That's the theme that transitions into cowboy music at some point, and I don't know how. I'm more impressed of how they did that. How it went from Rugrats theme to Wild West. But
they literally do the
yeah, exactly.
You know, and like Dewey's walking in.
Mm-hmm. But and I feel like they do that at the wrong moments. Like whoever's mixing this was just doing it at the wrong, because like they start doing like, it's not even like, oh, okay, well this is just to signify that Dewey's like the cowboy that's riding off in the sunset, or like that rides in the scene to save the day or something. But it's ironic because it's Dewey and he's dorky. No, they weren't doing that. They play like the down part whenever he's like on top of her trying to like make out. And it's like, why is this the lone cowboy time when he's trying to cop a feel? Like, it doesn't make any sense to me.
No.
And it's not even like funny in like an actively funny way. It's just like passively funny to remark on it right now. It's not even like we were like, that's hilarious, but why'd they do that? Haha. It was just like, what are they doing? What are they doing?
Yeah. There's a lot of facepalm moments. Again, I promise there is stuff I liked about the movie. It's just the stuff I could talk about now is the stuff that I was not a fan of.
The disappointment's at the front of the brain right now.
Yes,
so
absolutely. Yeah, I'm trying to push it out, trying to get it out of the way. Dude, is there anything we want to talk about before spoilers? I can't even think straight. I just keep playing the moments in my head.
No, nothing really. I mean, the setting here is, I feel like the first movie was like a parody of high school stuff, you know. As far as setting go, like everything's like a caricature, you know what I mean? So they were like caricatures of high school students, caricatures of the media, you know, and now they're caricatures of college students and caricatures of sororities and fraternities and stuff. And I think it's a funny playground for, you know, sort of base level social commentary while people get stabbed, because that's kind of what the first Scream was to me too. It was kind of like funny pop culture commentary while doing a horror movie, and it continues here in a college town. I thought the setting was cool enough. It served the plot. My issue was just how often an entire college campus that has been victim of a murder spree for a week was just like empty, except for the people that were getting murdered and a murderer, you know, like how often gunshots will go off or something, or a car would crash, or there's like an explosion or some shit, and then just like no officers or campus security or people in general are around. It's just, there's a lot of that. But anyway,
yeah,
that's, yeah, I don't know if do you have any thoughts about the new location? Because we're not in Greensboro anymore, Toto.
I feel like it's so much more dead. It is so
There's-
much more dead.
It's
like
so much larger, and there's so much less in it.
Like, they would try to do something, like they go to sorority houses.
Mhm.
And the only other thing I could think of, like, that's noteworthy is the theater room,
True.
which I think is cool looking. Not sure about how they utilize it throughout the entire film.
Yeah, I will say they tried to set up, you know, a little theme going on there, and I don't know that they executed it great, but
It looked cool, and that stuck out to me, and I was like, oh, that's visually cool. Because they do, like, a whole scene there, which we can talk about, so
True.
that was cool, but oh no. That's a problem with this film that I have.
He's
In
so
Scream,
disappointed.
the first one, I felt like, I
Yeah.
wasn't even necessarily waiting for Ghostface to show up to do something, because the whole back and forth, even me knowing who did it,
Right.
I was just sitting, like, I'm able to sit through the first Scream and still enjoy the in-between times between the killings
Sure.
there. With this film, I felt like even whenever I got to the kills, aside from like the first one, which is over the top cheesy, it's probably arguably the best kill in the film. Probably.
The very first one?
The
like in
very
theater?
first one.
Mhm.
That probably that, and then whenever it just comes to the middle parts, like in between the slashing, it's just like, okay, yeah, this is kind of interesting. And then it just gets more dry and dry as the film continues on.
Yeah.
Like, they try to set up interesting stuff and everything, and it's just like, dude, I don't know. And then by the end, it just gets so over the top
It does.
that I'm just like, what is going on? What is going on? Because that was the other problem too. I vaguely remembered who Ghostface was at the end of this film. However, by the time they revealed who it was, I was like, yeah, I had no idea. I was convinced it was somebody else.
I will say if their goal was to simply bamboozle the audience into like, you'll never guess who it is, I mean, I guess mission accomplished, but it was at the expense of like, I don't feel like they even really gave a lot of breadcrumbs or anything for you to be like, oh, this is a cool motivation and this makes sense, and you're gonna be like, oh, they got me. It wasn't that moment. It was like, oh, that's kind of dumb.
I just feel like the mystery of the first one is so much better because you don't feel robbed. Like, I don't know how you felt, but like whenever they revealed who Ghostface was in the first film, I was genuinely like, whoa,
Yeah.
sort of thing. This is just like, what?
Right.
No,
and the first one was like, and even their motivation was sort of fresh and interesting, and just their characters and like what they were doing, and it fit with the whole theme in the movie. That's all just like pop culture commentary and stuff. And they tried to like kind of do a repeat of that almost a little bit with this one, but it just wasn't. It was no longer fresh. The way they did it was not as interesting. The way the people that were involved were not even like cool, like interesting characters or charismatic characters or anything. It was it fell flat a little bit.
Yeah. I don't know. I didn't even want to dunk on this movie, but it's like one of those things watching it that I'm like, come on. And again, I will talk about the things I do like, and that is going to elevate the score for me a little bit there. It's just, I think coming into this, I was like kind of more excited because I'm like, oh, I haven't seen this film in forever. And I just dive in and I'm like, I don't know, man. Do you just want to give your rating, dude?
Yeah, we can do the ratings.
Okay.
I'll say as much as we've been dunking on this, I do think it's a fairly decently constructed film. I think the pacing's fine. The pacing kind of drops off a little bit in the middle because you're like, you I feel like it's paced well, but then just so much nothing happens a little bit, just like so much not interesting things happen for a horror movie that you do sort of start to get bored. But we do go from scene to scene to scene and plot point to plot point quickly enough that it keeps your tension through most of the movie. Really just sort of a disappointing ending. It does sort of fall off the longer you watch it, and we covered the other bad points there. So I am excited to talk about some of the creative things that do boost the score up for me in spoilers. But for now, my rating is like a 5. This is like, it was a good time. I thought there were some funny things, but it's not an amazing film. It's pretty middle of the road for me. So yeah, good old fiver.
Man, so you gave it the exact same score as the first one.
Yeah, I would prefer the first one is a better movie. But I do think this has a few things going for it, I guess. I don't know. Maybe giving them the same score isn't fair to the first one.
I mean, this is no criticism. I'm just like surprised there, but it probably is maybe 5.1 for the first one and 5.0 for this one.
Yeah, I would definitely rather watch the first Scream. I'll put it that way. But
okay. All right. Yeah, my score. Cool. Okay. So I remember I rated the first one a 9. I really love that film. It has a special place. It just did so many things that I love and everything. Revisiting this film, definitely not as good as the first one there. And so there are a couple of good moments because, like I said, even though it is watered down at a lot of points, Neve Campbell does still have like a couple of like good moments where she, does have to get emotional or serious, stuff like that. But there's also stuff that's just dumb. There's stuff that's Jamie Kennedy just hits it out of the park again. I would say he's about the only one who was exactly on the same energy and internet. He was as connected to the role as he was the first time round.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of interesting visual stuffs. Again, it's always fun seeing Ghostface, screw around, and even moments that are just straight up baffling and silly can still be enjoyable, but it's just other baffling moments that kind of sink the score a little bit. If I'm going to be honest, I have to give it 4.5. That I can't a good conscience bring it up to a 5 comparatively to how I've rated other films there. But sinking it down to 4 seems even a little too harsh. Like, I think, like, if I had this on the background or whatever, I'd be like, oh, this scene's coming up. And now they're just going to talk about stuff that I already know, go off. That's fine, I mean, if you like the first Scream, still give this one a watch. I wouldn't say, in comparison to sequels I have seen for horror films there, it's definitely not the worst sequel.
No.
Most definitely not. It's just kind of a bit of a drop down there. Still love the Scream franchise. I know it's not going to... as far as I'm aware, I'm not going to hate every film more and more as the series goes on. But maybe wait until I watch 6. Maybe. Who knows? Oof. But that's a story for another day. Yeah. I mean, that's our recommendations. If you're interested in watching it, you probably already have. Or if you haven't, definitely go watch it now because we're going to spoil the hell out of this film now. Okay. Talk about the first spoiler, Aaron. I am so unenergetic.
A little bit. It's okay. Shit. What do you want to talk about first? You want to talk about...
I don't know, man.
I don't know, man. How about Cece's killing?
That was fun.
Yeah,
that was fun. That was probably my second favorite kill in the film.
What was your first favorite kill? Why don't we start there?
All right.
Come on.
Sure.
I don't need to go in order here. What's your favorite kill? Let's talk a little positivity.
I don't know. Let's just talk about Cece. Let's just talk about Cece. Okay. We can talk about that because that was like traditional Scream style kill.
Yeah,
because basically,
around the house.
Yeah, just a sorority sister alone. And I do love the I do love the cat and mouse that Ghostface does with her, and I know you were a big fan because she was flipping through the channel and left it on Nosferatu. You know what I'm saying?
I love Nosferatu.
Yeah, I mean, it was good. I think it's good for a series to not forget its roots and kind of stick to what worked well in the first one, which is Ghostface outside of your house screwing with you. I think that's just something that, at least I'm glad they don't overuse, but again, like, I'm trying to think of how many people Ghostface kills in this film, and it's like just a handful of people, I want to say. Because he killed 2 at the beginning.
Yeah, he killed those 2 at the beginning. He killed Cece.
No, there goes Randy.
Yeah, he kills Randy.
Yeah, and 2 cops.
Yes, and then her friend.
Yes,
and then
5, 6. I mean, it seems like a decent amount of kills. It just doesn't stick around in the brain, I guess.
And Derek.
Yeah.
He gets crucified.
Died for your sins.
Poor Derek.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
there's a lot of people that get like a little injured, I guess. But
I don't know.
Because like Dewey gets killed but not killed. You know what I mean?
They do up the body count, I suppose, comparatively to the first one.
And I thought they were gonna because they said specifically in the little sequels class or whatever, they were like in sequels or whenever they talk about the rules or whatever. Sorry, when Dewey and Randy were talking about the rules, he was like, "There's going to be a higher body count. There's going to be more crazy kills." And I forgot what the other rule was, but.
I don't think he got to the role. I think Dewey interrupted him, which I got really pissed off at because if I keep Randy talking, he's the one with the most interesting stuff to say.
True.
Man, we got derailed. Yeah, let's talk about some more CC. Then jump to theater, I guess.
Yeah, I don't think that one that kill was particularly crazy or anything, but I agree with you. I think that was where I was like, because I do think the beginning of the movie and CC's is towards the beginning is all pretty good for me because I actually really loved the little cold open thing they did at the movie theater, and I thought I was going to set the stage for something really good. It's a parody of itself in addition to other movies, and I thought that was awesome. And the kills that were there were creative. Stabbing him through the stall, and then Jada Pinkett Smith getting murdered in the theater while everybody was like, excited to watch this soon-to-be franchise stab film, and I just thought that was great. And then you get to Cece, and it's like back to its roots. It's like a girl in a house and is alone, and she's getting chased around, and he's tumbled over the chair, and she's fighting back with him. And I was like, yeah, scream! Like, this is the good stuff. So I was excited. I even thought it was funny that he just like straight up threw her off a balcony and she died. It just, that whole scene kind of went collapsing down whenever the fucking 90s music, the 90s
Dude,
rock music
that was
played.
so ill-placed. That was one of the first instances where I'm like,
that kind of moment.
Yeah, it just depleted the energy of just finishing off. It just was so ill-fitting. I don't know who edited this film, but come on now. But yeah, I mean, talking, and we could talk more about the movie theater stuff, but I'll talk about Cece's thing. I love, the traditional, again, sitting on the couch alone in the house there, and, she's wandering around, and does she hear noises upstairs, which is totally, something I've dealt with where I hear like a noise, or house creak or something like that, and I'm very paranoid, and I'm like, okay, it's like a bit, especially the bigger the house, the creepier it is. Just like empty space. The sorority friend just pops scaring her, like jump scare.
That was one moment that I thought was good until it ended. Like, she just ran out of the house and I was like, all right, back to getting killed. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Why weren't you like, hey, somebody's here?
I mean, there's a lot of like interesting stuff they do. I mean, again, I love the phone conversation. I feel like the phone conversation is just really good, where she picks up the phone, it's Ghostface, and she's like, oh, it's my drunk boyfriend being silly, here, let me swap the line, hold, and it's like, yeah, it's my drunk boyfriend, and then swaps the line, he's like, I'm not dead, doing that, and so then, she hangs up, and, she's trying to check around the house, and then the friend's there, and, she's like, oh, don't forget to set the alarm or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and call security if you need to or whatever. And so anyways, I love that they're having this conversation, and the friend answers, and she's like, hello. He's like, is Stacy there? It's Ted.
It's Ted.
and she's like, okay, it's Ted. And it hands off the phone.
Mm-hmm.
I did find that to be a very funny, well-written moment there.
Yeah.
And he's like, hey, Ted. He's like, you wish. And that was just fun. And, she's like, trying to call security there, and she can't, check outside too far because the connection is bad. Because, landline phones be a nightmare like that.
True.
That's fine. I do love that they at least try to address some of the critiques of, like, why don't they set the alarm, or why don't they call security if they're on campus. They do stuff like that, and it does add to, again, Ghostface probably pulling the best athletic, I don't know about best athletic, but lots of athletic skills, because nothing brought me more joy than whenever he's chasing Stacy through the house, and he gets like knocked into the table there, and it's just like vase is on there with flowers, just gets knocked off. I did find it funny because her running up the stairs and tossing things down, just random things.
Pushes the bike down the stairs.
Yes, it was so funny, and it reminds me of a scene from Scary Movie. Have you ever seen that movie?
Yes.
The one scene whenever I can't even think. I think it's Anna Faris is like pushing stuff down the stairs, like the grandma down the stairs towards Ghostface, and then the piano and Ghostface. See, like, and that just what sparked joy, because in all honesty, I wasn't a big fan of Scary Movie, but I love that scene to death. There's just good comedy, but so like overall, it was just good slice of like normal style scream kill. But yeah, that music just fizzled out the steam there. It was just like, psst, gone. But let's talk about something good that I'm really excited and happy about. How about that? Yay!
Yeah. What's up?
Movie theater scene. I feel like just that whole opening scene, while I still love the opening scene of Scream maybe a little bit more, I love what this film did as a follow-up there, where again it just focuses on Omar and Jada Pinkett Smith going to the movies, and they're talking about black representation in film and everything. I just love their commentary, and they're like hype about it, and I love the setup of the whole thing, like the whole idea. Again, like I cannot state this enough. I think I understated this comparatively to the stuff that I didn't like. I love the idea that they made a movie on killings that happened in this universe, and they have this whole event there. They have like a huge animatronic hand stabbing there. They're blowing it up, making a big deal. And even whenever they get inside, it's like, oh, you get a free stab costume there. Because I did love in the first film, they just said, yeah, this is some regular, Halloween costume there that you could buy anywhere, so it could be anybody. But not only that, but like the stab. And so you go into the theater, and there are so many jack-wagons there dressed up as Ghostface there, and of course they have like their glow-in-the-dark knives.
Yeah, these like plastic knives, and they're throwing popcorn.
This is the most unruly bunch of theater goers I have ever seen there, and it's just fun. And again, it's great getting to see them recreate Scream in the movie Stab. I think it's just so funny watching the scenes almost verbatim, but they're just slightly off. It's like a little uncanny there. But yeah, and so just them watching that film, and the people are like, oh yeah, kill, doing that. And I do like the breakaway that they do whenever Jada Pinkett Smith's like, okay, I'm out of here.
Yeah. And
again, it has like a little fake jump scare with Omar's character coming out to scare her and everything. And then they split off. I have to say, Omar's death is weird, man. It's so weird, because he's like getting up. He's like, I'm going to go to the bathroom. And it was just funny seeing two people dressed up as Ghostface at the urinals there, and they just both turn around while urinating, looking at Omar, and he's like, okay. And he's going over to the stalls, and then there's one stall that's locked. He's like, oh yeah, sorry about that. And he goes, and then I don't know what Ghostface was doing there, man.
He was like mumbling something.
No, like, what is this Animal Crossing Ghostface going? And, you know, like, Omar's smiling, like, you know, like...
And he's trying to listen. And, like, when he listens in, he's saying, like, oh, listen to me, Poppy, or something.
Yeah,
it's
it's
like something.
It's so
He's
weird.
like trying to get him to put his ear to the doors, and then he stabs
It's
him
such a weird...
through, like, a full inch of plastic.
I mean, I guess I can't argue with results, but it's weird. And so it's just like, well, that was weird. But, again, did lead to, like, a, I guess, pretty cool death. I don't know.
I don't know how you die from getting stabbed in the cheek, but
I think he got stabbed in the head, maybe, but it did. He was holding his cheek like this, so it's really hard to tell. I assumed it was the head. Either way, yeah, it definitely did seem super deep. But he was like,
that's
you know,
superhuman stabbing too, to be able to stab through a full inch of like plastic door.
Oh yeah,
and then through his skull.
That is like Jason Voorhees amount of force, you know, going on there, just full going through there. Yeah, man. And but I do love that it does lead to the funny moment of like Ghostface entering the theater with the leather jacket on to trick Jada Pinkett Smith.
Right. Which at the time I was like, how did he know exactly where she was sitting? And like, or like, why would you, like, how did he know who this guy was, where he was sitting in the theater, and then go sit next to his girlfriend to do this little trick if you're just like killing random people in a theater? But then it's revealed later that he was targeting these two people specifically, and I was like, that makes sense to me.
I did like that they explained that, and it's not just, oh, it's random. Right. So I did appreciate that, but yeah, it does lead to like the funny moment where, you know, like Jada's getting into the movie and she's like, okay, whatever, you know, like he already tried to scare her once and now he's just like fully dressed up. And then, you know, he starts to proceed to stab her, which I think is genius because everyone's pretending to stab each other there already. And there are, you know, other people acting and screaming and everything else. And it isn't until, you know, like she's just bleeding out in front of the screen and everyone's like, you know, like they see that it's real. So I really like that. It's a good opening scene. It is. It's just, again, and like I said, introduction to Sidney's Prescott's good. Good introduction to Randy, also good because he's just complaining about films. I was highly offended whenever they said Aliens is a better sequel to Alien. Without spoiling anything, no. Most definitely not. But that's beside the point. Shots fired, baby. Come at me, bro. I don't even know where to go with this film. I'm trying to focus on the stuff I really liked a ton.
Yeah,
I guess
there is a lot that just kind of gets blurred into the background.
I guess I could just talk about poor Randy's death.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Randy gets the axe. I do like the idea of the setup. How, again, it's like broad daylight and Ghostface is already calling. And so then everyone's just trying to look around for anybody talking on a phone, maybe harassing them. I don't know how to feel about I don't know how to feel about the death because, again, I felt like having the strongest character get killed in the middle of the film, there definitely took out steam with the rest.
And there was no, like, acknowledgement that he was such an important character. It's just, like, one scene where Sidney's also being traumatized with something else, where she's like, oh, Randy, I gotta call his mom. And they're like, oh, don't worry about it. And then, and then that's it. That's all they talk about Randy.
Oh, no, Randy. Bye.
Yeah. And it kind of sucked, because they did set up this thing where, like, Randy was kind of like, I don't know, a little bit crushing on Sidney a little bit.
Yes.
She's with Derek, and he's like, oh, well, in a great sequel, you know, the main girl gets with the nerd at the end, you know, and they were like trying to set and then he just dies halfway through. And it's like, well, there's a whole rest of this movie I gotta watch now. Yeah, I do think the placement was a little odd, but
yeah, I wish it would have done a little bit better. I do think it's pretty goofy in broad daylight. Ghostface is able to grab Randy, pull into the van, and close it shut.
Right.
And then coincidentally, there's this guy with this big old boombox. Just walking by as he's screaming and dying in pain.
And it's not even like a, stab, dead or whatever. It's like there's a fight in there. He gets thrown into the window and it like busts out, but nobody notices. And there's so many scenes like that where it's like, okay, you're on a very populated college campus. There's been murders happening that are focused specifically on students on this campus. Why isn't this place covered in security detail 24/7? Why is no people walking by noticing that murders are happening? Like, it's just crazy that, yeah. And that whole plot leading up to that also revolves on, like, there's people everywhere and they're on their cell phones and they're trying to figure out which one is the killer, and nobody notices that just somebody's getting stabbed to death in a news van. Crazy.
Yeah, it was a major ripperoni there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I felt like they at least tried to build up to, like, oh, he's gonna die here, so we're just trying to build up his final moments here. Because, he's like, yeah, again, he has, like, the best delivery in the film. Like, it's like, what's your favorite scary movie? He's like, oh, Showgirls, it's terrifying.
Yeah.
Which is, like, supposed to be one of the worst films of all time. But he's like, he's like, oh yeah, what's your favorite horror movie? And he's listing off all these college campus horror films there. It's just, like, fun. And then, he's just, like, insulting the killer. It's like, oh yeah, you're just trying to be like a Billy and Stu. They're a bunch of losers, let me tell you. Going off. So, I mean, I felt like if you were going to kill him, I guess that's, like, the best dialogue you give him. It's just kind of
true.
The both literal and figurative execution is
true. Yeah. Because I did really like that scene, and I liked, how they're on the hunt they're like, okay, this is our moment to maybe find him. Where is he in the crowd here, And they split up and are looking for him. I thought that was all really strong. Yeah, it's just that ending that it's like, okay, he died, and then they just kind of forget about him. It's like, oh.
Yeah, it's sad, but props to Jamie Kennedy for, once again, just giving it his all.
Yeah.
Yep.
Did you think in that moment that maybe it was the camera guy that killed him? Because he disappeared, and then the guy got killed in a news van, and then he came back, and he's like, whoa, what happened?
I knew it was, like, I guess we're in spoilers, forget it. I knew it wasn't the cameraman this time round, because remember, it wasn't him.
Right.
First time round, I just remember thinking, who the heck is it there? Because the first time I watched it, I didn't even remember that it was a news fan there. And Randy's death came out of left field for me, because I'm like, they won't kill Randy. And then they killed Randy. Yeah, so, like, first time round, it didn't even cross my mind about it. Second time round, like I said, I vaguely remember who the killer was, and I remembered it wasn't the cameraman. I even forgot about, like, the cameraman so much, because he's pretty much like, yeah, I'm the new cameraman. What, the old cameraman died? I'm out.
Right.
I'm out. And then he shows up for, like, 2 seconds at the end of the film.
For some reason, yeah.
Yes, for some reason. I don't know.
Yeah.
I've come back now that the threat's gone.
Yeah, that's how I would be too. I was like, okay.
All right.
Now that my life isn't in danger, you want to hire me back? Hey, can we talk about
we could talk about whatever the hell you want, baby.
How about that weather? No, can we talk about the most ridiculous kill scene in the movie, which is with the car with the cops?
Oh yeah, we can talk about that. Yeah, sure.
That is both some of the best stuff and some of the worst stuff in this movie. I think that entire extended scene. It starts off as some of the worst stuff, like where they're like, "Where are we going?" And if I told you, I'd have to kill you.
That I lost my mind hearing that, and I'm like, why? Why would you make a joke like that?
For the same reason they're in a theater production that revolves around Sidney getting stabbed a lot, and then they're like, "Oh, oops, we triggered her PTSD." Who would have thought?
Yeah, we'll have to talk about. There's a lot of what is
Terrible
going on
decisions.
scene.
What are
But we
these
could
people
talk about the most over the top outrageous kills that is absolutely preposterous in every.
Was like, what the fuck? Like, he just appears on top of their car for one in the middle of an intersection, just manages to stab and kill one of them through the window, and then like goes across it. That's where I'm like, this is a little superhuman for who Ghostface is supposed to be.
Like, that's the thing. He's killing these cops. Like, why did you get the like most inexperienced wimpy cops to protect?
Which they specifically said, like, 2 of our best men are protecting her or whatever. And it's like, these are the best guys you got.
Like, it's so frustrating because, yeah, they're like, if I told you, I have to kill you. And then they all proceed to die whenever one cop gets, like, stabbed in the head through the window. And then the other guy's like, oh, God, I'm going to get out of the car to shoot him. And then, lo and behold, Ghostface stabs him and has him flip over the car. And then Ghostface proceeds to hijack the car. And it's Mario Kart time, baby.
Yeah.
Joining the roster of Michael Myers of slashers driving cars.
Yeah, because the other cop who had his neck stabbed gets up and, like, hops on the hood and it just drives through.
Well, that's a crazy thing, too, because I didn't even remember all this craziness. I was like, oh, yeah, he's going to get ran over. No. He is going to get hit and get stuck on the hood as Ghostface is swerving heavily back and forth like a child trying to pretend he's driving.
Right.
There.
Trying to get him off, I guess.
And then he gets himself wedged in between like this concrete wall into this construction zone where all of a sudden this cop gets a pipe through its head.
Yeah, because he like crashes into a concrete barrier or whatever to get him off, I feel like.
And
then, he stabs him, which all of that was like not good. But then I feel like they were just doing a really hastily put together transition to get to what was good, which was they're stuck in the back. What also doesn't make any fucking sense. Why were they locked in the back?
I don't know why they were in a cop car.
Yeah.
Like, I guess we couldn't find any other vehicles.
Yeah, so you got to get in this cop car, and also there's no way for us to keep the back doors unlocked. You're trapped here.
You're safer that way if you can't escape.
But I do think it was really, really cool where they ended up, which is like they're sandwiched in between this little concrete barrier or whatever. So, and they're locked in the back seat. And they're like, how do I get out? But Ghostface Killer's like passed out in the front seat from the rag where he like got knocked unconscious from the airbag or whatever. And they noticed the pole that stabbed through the detective, like bent their little back cage. So Sidney's like being a badass, like rolls the cage up, but then they have to like sneakily get past Ghostface so he doesn't wake up. I thought that was awesome. I thought it was a lot of good suspense. I thought they weren't thinking rationally, which is making a loud noise isn't necessarily going to wake up somebody that was just knocked unconscious, like just get out. But they were like, oh, let me slowly reach over him for the handle. And I know it was all for the movie, but like in real life, I'd be like, door open, get the fuck out, scramble.
Yeah.
But then the girl in the back seat's locked in there, and they can't get her. I thought all that was great, and then it kind of ended with a dud again, where they're like, okay, now that we've walked away from the car, let's go back and try to take off the mask. And he's out of the car, who would have guessed? And you're standing next to a big pallet of wood, and you're with your back turned to it. Oh, but there you got stabbed. Oops. I thought all that was dumb, but the middle part in between was kind of genius.
Yeah, that's how I feel, dude. That's how I feel. As much as I love Mario Kart Ghostface there driving and it's funny, haha stuff, I do love they add that scene of suspense. Like, again, it's haphazardly done to where it's like, okay, back doors are locked, passenger side is locked, so the only way to get across is over Ghostface. However, there is a couple of issues I also have with this. Aside from going very slow and then having that silly horn honk there, which I know they did for tension and everything. Couple of things. This is the killer.
Yeah.
Absolute no doubt in your mind. He should have his knife on him as you saw him stab one of the dudes. Shouldn't it be on the floorboard somewhere, anywhere? And again, you could argue like, oh, we're not trying to, you know, wake him up by pulling anything off or anything.
Mhm.
You're already crawling over him, unless you're like, again, and maybe that's it because they crawl through the window there because they can't get the door open, I guess. You know, just the smoothest acrobatics sliding out of there. Okay, doesn't go for a knife. Perfectly fine. Doesn't pull the mask off immediately, which would, you know, maybe it's one of those things like, okay, they're flustered, they're just trying to get out and everything. But, you know, she doesn't think about pulling off the mask to see who it is underneath there. And 3, the cop still has the gun in his hand that he never fired.
Get the gun.
Yeah, and they make a point to show it, like, yeah, he still hold on to that gun, even though he got impaled through the skull. And again, like, by the time they walk back, it's just clearly setting up for Ghostface to be seen disappearing, and then him... I mean, the whole wood pallet load should have been shaped like Ghostface. Literally just cardboard cut out of Ghostface there as he just cleanly walks out, because it just looks so perfect. Like
it was like in those Scooby-Doo cartoons or whatever, where like one part of the background is animated different.
Yes,
and you know,
like it's like a
which
cell
door's gonna
shade.
open. Yeah.
Yeah, instead of like the background, like, okay, I know something's gonna happen to that box because otherwise it would have painted it a background.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's exactly how it felt with Ghostface there. And so whenever they go back, I'm just like, if you like, I guess you thought about it just now, like, oh yeah, that's a good idea. There. Which, I mean, I guess I get, but if you're going, at least go as a group. But then again, I guess she was wanting to leave, so I guess that's the reasoning.
It's so dumb. It's dumb. I get it. Like I could justify, like, I feel like there's a moment where she tried to take it off, but then she honked the horn and she was like, shit. And so then she's like, I'm not gonna take off the mask. They get out, and then she was focused on getting her friend out. And then once both those things happened, she's like, no, I feel she felt safe now that she escaped. She's like, I gotta go back and take off the mask. But like, I understood that, but yeah, no, the friend just standing next to the ballot waiting to get killed was dumb. But
yeah. So, and the friend dies, which again, I felt like this is no fault of the actress, but I felt like they gave her nothing.
Not a thing. Yeah.
Not a thing. Like, I can't tell you one defining thing about her.
She was a little sassy, I feel like, 'cause she gave her big bag to the detective and was like, haha, one-liner that I don't remember, and then hopped in the car.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I couldn't tell you her name or
I can't tell you
scenes
anything.
she was in even. Like,
Just,
I know she was there in the movie, but I couldn't tell you another scene she was in.
Like, and I don't think it's even the actress's fault. I just feel like it's just script wise they gave her nothing.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot of the clever charm in the dialogue that there was in the last one, but
yeah. All right, we could. I don't know. We can keep talking about these films, but there's one thing that's stuck in my head that is just a big lump in my head. Yeah. Just thinking about it is Derek's musical number he has in the cafeteria. You know, winning back her affection whenever she starts to get like kind of creeped out, because it's like whenever he tried to chase. Oh my god! I just remembered another thing. I'll have to talk about Cece's house there. I'm going to talk about this musical number first.
Okay.
But that whole musical number, I was just kind of sitting there mind numb, like, what is going on? Like, I didn't even remember this, and I just felt like I was having a stroke or something. Like, I just imagined, like, the film just turned into a whole other different film, because he's, like, singing there, trying to earn the affection, and Nev Campbell's like, oh, Derek, you know.
And then the whole cafeteria be clapping, you know.
And, you know, again, no fault of Jerry. Jerry's killing it. He's killing it for me.
I thought I was mostly laughing at your reaction to that scene. Honestly, I thought it kind of tracked for how these movies have gone so far as like the feel of them.
You're not wrong.
To be like ridiculous over the top. It was cringe, but I felt like it was supposed to be, you know.
I guess you're not wrong. I guess you're not wrong. I can't refute that. Because definitely, like, even, like, you know, Stu is the prime example of just over-the-top.
Yeah.
Unlike any other human being sort of thing. So Jerry just pulling a Mamma Mia in the scene. I guess the facts check out. I guess I was just not I definitely was pulled out of left field for it.
It's a High School Musical.
And everyone's clapping and giggling there.
Yeah.
And then he pretty much earns back her love and affection. Because, yeah. Anyways, that's been on my mind for the last 45 minutes.
There's so much to talk about with this movie, but I'm not even like that excited to talk about most of it.
I do have to talk about back at Cece's house, that after the murders are like of Cece happened or whatever, and they're investigating, and Sidney's there, and they're like looking through the house, and then there's like the whole thing of like, yeah, come on, let's get out of here, Sidney. And then the phone's ringing, and she's like, I'm not gonna answer it.
And then she goes back and answers it.
Yeah, and then it's Ghostface, lo and behold, and she's like, show yourself, you're coward. He's like, I'm closer than you think, or whatever. And then it like cuts to the front door, which closed in the meanwhile. And then there's Ghostface there running towards the camera. And then there's like the whole chase, which maybe that's the chase with the chair topple again. That kind of runs together. But like they have this whole chase scene, and she manages to escape. Derek's there. He's like, hey, what's going on? He's like, the killer's there. He's like, yeah, I'll be right back. And then they have like him get cut, but they stress immensely later on about, he's like, man, I'm so lucky. I avoided every major artery to not be killed.
He's a pre-med student. He would know to not cut himself too hard. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. But I do love, this is like, I don't think this is great editing, but it's something that made me laugh unintentionally. Where like Dewey's running in, trying to check out, and he sees the front door open, and two of the sorority girls are just there looking back at the house confused, and he's like, dang it, you gotta wait. So that was a funny
funny
moment.
haha.
All right, let's just keep tracking towards the end. Again, moments happen.
Yeah.
Again, Randy has this great conversation with Dewey over Baskin-Robbins ice cream. That was another thing I noticed a lot was product placement.
There's a lot of that. The Pepsi in the beginning, yeah.
Yeah, the Baskin-Robbins as they talk about the rules of horror films. The cameraman showing up, hey, what'd I miss? Holding Dunkin' Donuts. It's fine, but it's just like funny things I noticed this time round. I don't know. We could talk about just like Dewey and Gale Weathers reigniting their...
I'm just kidding. Yeah, we could talk about it.
Yeah, Dewey's death. Yeah, let's talk about that. That was so silly. Just the soundproof glass there, and they're banging, and it's just muted on their side. And then you see him get stabbed behind, and it's so super dramatic, like blood splurting out of his mouth, going...
Yeah.
And Gale screaming, no. Doing that, and then he's like dripping blood against the glass, like...
And then the killer goes for Gale, and all she does is push a thing of shelves in front of a door, and that just means that it's foolproof. He can't get in anymore.
Yeah, it's...
And then she just gets out somehow. And then what's his name was there? Weird tall guy that was like...
Cotton.
Cotton, yeah.
Yeah.
I want to be on Diane Sawyer.
Diane Sawyer. I am willing to threaten Nev Campbell, who is already having her life threatened, to be on Diane Sawyer an hour, 10K a piece, baby.
I mean, what an opportunity. Also, was it ever explained why he was in that building?
No, he just is there. I do love that. I love seeing the old technology being used in computers, being like, oh yeah, you got an instant message. You need to check that out. He's like, you're gonna die tonight. The police can't save you now. On the instant message. I'm like, that's just funny and goofy. So I enjoyed that quirky charm, even though it's like, again, they're just like randomly throwing you like, don't forget, you're in danger. But yeah, the whole scene, like whenever Dewey and Gale are investigating, looking through the footage there of like who the killer is, and then they run into Ghostface, who's willing to show himself, then disappear, then pop back up again to go after him. Gale, who is an experienced reporter, knows what to do, is acting like she's never been chased by a killer before.
Even though she was last movie.
Yes. And I don't know, I felt like Ghostface was really stupid. Like acting.
Yeah.
Like I felt like in the first one he was clumsy but always cunning, like like just spastic again, like a Looney Tunes character.
Yeah.
This one is just dumb, goofy. Like whenever it comes to like Gale navigating through like the sound room there, and it's like Ghostface should be making that cut around the corner, but he doesn't. There, yeah, it's just like a lot of goofy freaking moments. And it culminates to where basically Sidney is running back to campus and she hears her play's music playing, which I'm just going to talk about this because I realize just now coming towards the end, I just want to mention it. The whole play idea of like, you know, the whole old Greek chorus, I don't know if you know what play they were trying to do or anything.
No, they mentioned it, but I didn't pick up on.
Anyways, I think I'm with you in the fact that it's preposterous to drama teachers like, you must use this pain. You'll be better being traumatized.
Yeah, you are actively being hunted, but with opening weekend, I mean, you gotta do the play.
Yeah, doing that, and then you know, I do love that scene and how it sticks out because again, it's just very artistically different, interesting. Is it well placed? I don't know, maybe, but it was something new and interesting to look at. And so then it's like the Greek chorus of them saying that. And again, getting to see her act a whole lot different. And then whenever it comes to her, like pretending like she's being stabbed, all of a sudden Ghostface is in like one of the robes there. And it makes me curious because I'm assuming Ghostface was actually there.
Oh, I was assuming it was just her trauma because everybody takes off the mask and then none of them were Ghostface.
Well, see, and that's what I thought too the first time. The second time is whenever I started questioning it because the person that I thought was Ghostface, who was Ghostface in a crowd, I see exit off the camera there, and then it flips around, and then I see the drama teacher and the police running up. But again, I like the idea better that it was trauma and, you know, Ghostface actually wasn't there. Because if Ghostface was there, that I can understand the idea of like, oh, well, we're pretending to stab her. I'll just stab her. Worked once before. Am I right or am I right? But I liked it more as an idea of trauma. Like, I think it would have been cooler if, like, all of their masks started looking like Ghostface there. Yeah. I think that would have been a cooler idea and moment. And again, it starts to screw with her on a psychological level. Because I imagine she probably has a lot of mental trauma.
And I feel like they tried to set that up and then just didn't really hit the ball. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
They had a few moments where they're talking about, like, so she's talking to one of her friends, and they're like, it's okay to break, and she's like, I'm not gonna, you know what I mean? So I feel like there's a couple lines in there where it's talking about psychological trauma, and they set up in the beginning how she's dealing with it well until the murders start happening again, you know what I mean? And all these old people are coming back into her life that were related to the incident in Greensboro. Like, I felt like they were trying to do that, and then, they just really didn't. They didn't knock that ball out of the park.
I think that would have been such a cool moment there. And I think that's what draws me about it is just, again, like the set is interesting. The whole vibe is interesting. I do actually like the music track. It's probably the one track I do like in this film there. I like that a ton. And I think, again, I'm with you. Like, they should have doubled down on, like, you know, if it was trying to be portrayed as, like, kind of mental trauma, like, go all out with it. Like, all of a sudden, there's, like, tons of ghost face mask in front. I think that would have been a really cool scene there. And she's just, like, screaming. Or even just,
like, because they had all that lightning effect and stuff. Even if just, like, one flash of the lightning, everybody's mask turns to Ghostface.
Yes, that would be so cool. Kind of like what they did in My Bloody Valentine 3D. Something like that. Dude, that could have been so cool. God. God. Yeah, I wish they would have done more with that scene. But don't worry. They come back to the set there. Oh, yeah. And because that's the thing I'm curious about is I guess Sidney decides to go to the theater because she hears the music and she's like, oh, there must be somebody there. That's not the killer, because I guess.
She was just running through the entire college campus and couldn't find anybody. But then the lights were on in the theater. And so she's like, well, I gotta go here.
Yeah.
Not to campus police.
Yeah, and so it's pretty much there where, again, our lovely Derek, who was taken away previously by frat boys in cloaks. That was a scene.
It was a thing that happened.
And then they, like, rope him up to, like, the little thing, like the little platform that they have during the play that drops down.
And they strip him. He becomes Jesus Christ, and they tie him to a crucifix.
Yes, after getting wasted on beer.
Yes.
But anyways, he's dropped down to reveal And then all of a sudden, Ghostface appears, and guess who it is? Guy who never got any freaking screen time except maybe 2 minutes.
It's Mickey, baby. Yeah, I noticed how we're finally talking about the end. We haven't talked about either of the characters that are Ghostface.
Yeah,
and one of them's Mickey.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, that's a creative thing about Scream 1. They have the killers right in your face all of the time, but they're having you second guess every single time there, because you're not expecting the ending where it's like, oh, it's 2 killers there.
Right.
Mickey popping out again. What did he talk about? Like, there's only like a few hints. Him talking about like movies being like, oh yeah, movies make killers. You kidding me? You know, that's one. And then 2, he has a video camera scene at one point.
Yeah. He was also the one that like in the hospital was like, talking about Derek, and he's like, why did he run back in? You know, why was he there in the first place or whatever? And they have, you know, Nev Campbell has like a scene where she's like, oh, like realizing like, oh, maybe I shouldn't trust him, you know. But I always thought it was funny because I thought the way they did the music and the way the camera kind of held on Mickey, I was like, did they realize that? Why does he know that he ran back in? Like that was the first little hint for me. I was like, why did Mickey know that Derek ran back in? So I was kind of like, could it be him? But then that thought was vanquished because you never see him in a significant scene in the movie after that.
He's not in the film.
Yeah.
Which I feel like is just kind of cheap, just to be like, yeah, remember this one character you didn't really give 2 thoughts about?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's them.
He was in the background, but he didn't have an active role in any of the conversations.
Yeah, and the whole like motive is fine. It's just him being like, oh yeah, you know, I will get away scot-free because I watched the movie Stab, and that's what made me go crazy.
Yeah. I bought his motive as somebody that was psychopathic enough to do what he was doing anyways. And I thought it was on brand for the film and like what they were going for. I thought it worked with how Scream is, you know, a big pop culture commentary thing. So then the villain is also a pop culture commentary kind of guy. Like on paper, I get it, but yeah, watching it, I was like, that's not what I wanted. That's a stupid motive, and I don't even know who this guy is.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, I feel like overall, it's fine. It's not like, oh, this is actually bad. It's awful. I'm not saying that. It's just like,
this is kind of corny, and he's like,
okay,
villain monologue on the stage, and it's just like, okay.
Yeah, but I like how Mickey starts to screw with Sidney saying, oh yeah, there's always 2 killers there, and there's this whole back and forth thing on kind of like, oh, is Derek, you know, the accomplice there and everything, and it's back and forth until it culminates to where Mickey's like, I'm just gonna shoot you, and then shoots Derek, and again, still goes on with his villain dialogue about like, again, just, you know, the movies made him do it. And then lo and behold, the real accomplice walks in holding Gale Weathers at gunpoint, and it is the reporter lady that kept bothering her. But not only that, it turns out to be Mrs. Loomis, aka Billy's mother.
Oh, Billy's mommy.
Yes, which she never appeared in the first film at all whatsoever.
Right.
She was gone, so there's like zero way you could have guessed that there. It isn't until like Sidney's like, Mrs. Loomis, you know, like doing that.
And they mentioned she like lost 60 pounds or something. And
yeah, like changed her identity and everything. And I didn't remember she was the killer the first time. Like watching through, I didn't remember she was the killer the first time. Like I remembered her character, but I just didn't remember that plot point. It just wasn't something that stuck in my head.
Well, it was kind of like the B plot or the C plot even. Like she was like, she didn't have anything to do really with the main plot. She was just like obsessed with Gale, and they had like a weird thing where she wanted to be Gale, and Gale was like, I know you want to be me, but now's not the time. And she's like, oh, okay, whatever. It was just like, it was like weird. It's like she didn't have anything to do with like the murders or that were happening now. Like she was a reporter on the scene all the time, but she was, I don't know, so like nobody was really paying attention to her, and she wasn't, there was no obvious motive she would have or whatever. So I guess that's how they were trying to, mix her into it, but it just felt unsatisfying that she was like, actually, I'm this person, and actually, I want revenge.
It was so unsatisfying, unsatisfying there. Just again, just like, I get it. Crazy mom wants revenge. I mean, that's
and
like
they even dropped like a reference to Mrs. Voorhees earlier in the film, so I was like, I guess that's how they were hinting, but even that's like just a little too vague. But...
Yeah, that's what I thought. I felt like, again, it was like something where you couldn't have guessed it,
right?
Per se or anything like that. That's about the only hint that I could have. I didn't even piece it together, if I'm honest, Aaron, about like the Mrs. Voorhees thing, but just makes sense there. I don't know, and then I do like. I mean, I don't know. Like is a strong word. I do like how they just start shooting everybody. Like they shoot Gail, and she falls into like the orchestra pit.
Funny. It was a what you say, dear sister moment, where it's just like, they shoot because she shoots because after Derek gets shot and she comes out, and then she shoots Mikey, I don't remember.
Yeah, Mickey.
And then while Mickey's falling down, he shoots Gail, and then Gail falls into the orchestra.
Yeah, everybody's getting shot at the current moment. It was a very what you say moment. Definitely for sure. And it just ends up goofy. And again, she's just like bitchy, like, oh yeah, no, I got it laid out there. It's going to be him that kills everybody and then gets himself killed afterwards. It's a perfect crime. I get my revenge. And I mean, I can't argue her motive. It's just whenever it comes up last minute or whatever,
right?
It doesn't make sense. Because here's the thing that makes sense about like the first one. Again, like Billy's whole motive is the fact that he's mad because Sidney's mom caused his parents to divorce there. That makes sense. And then Stu follows along because he's a follower there. He just gets like excited and hyped about it. As silly as it is, I buy it. I buy it with how much of like a lapdog he is for Billy.
There are real violent psychopaths out there that are like that, and it doesn't have to be any more complicated than that.
And so killing, I don't know, like killing Sidney for revenge of her son there, which you can even like hear like her say like awful stuff about like Billy's dad, basically. Whatever, you could tell she's unhinged psycho, and it ends up with the final fight, which is really silly.
Yeah,
it's very silly.
She runs backstage and is just pulling just comically large levers and stuff so that the lights just fall down and hit her, and she's chopping things up with this big axe, and it's
silly. And it was even silly to begin with how like Nev Campbell is trapped on stage because they drop the backgrounds and stuff to where it's a perfect cage. I mean, it's like perfectly placed, but yeah. Sidney's just going crazy with the fire axe, just cutting everything down, and then Mrs. Loomis is going, fake fire.
But her drama teacher was right all the time. She had to use it. Use this theater to accomplish her, get over her trauma.
I am a fighter. Anyways, and then like, the scene seems to culminate whenever all the rocks fall on her, which I'm like,
they're not real rocks.
Yeah, they're not real rocks.
Man.
Yeah, and if they were real rocks, no, they're not real rocks. Who am I kidding? No. I'm not even giving the
Why are they dragging, fucking ton limestone blocks for a theater set? They're not.
Yeah.
No, they're foam.
Yeah, and then, of course, there's like the other struggle once again, and then lo and behold, Joseph Cotton appears there, and he's the one with the gun, and Mrs. Loomis is going on and says like, I could get you your fame. You could be the sole survivor of the Woodsboro kills. Like going on, and she's like, let me have this, and he's like, like, and like Joseph Cotton, it's like they're trying to make him a nice guy, but he's also a dimwit, a very violent dimwit.
He's such a he's a character who's solely driven by the little motive they gave him, and it's weird. He's like, I need to get on TV and be the center of attention always, and for people to know that I'm innocent. And it's like he has no Like, they try to give him moments of sympathy and stuff, but it's, like, just overshadowed by the fact that he's an aggressive asshole.
Yeah, most definitely. You don't feel sorry for him at all. Like,
No.
maybe at the beginning, before his motives start to become more and more clear, he's like, I want to be on television. I was in jail for a year. I need this money. You know, he's like going on. And then it just ends up being, like, I know they did it as a cheeky, funny, haha line, but it's just like, Dinosaurs sounded pretty good right now, right? And he's like, got a deal. And then just shoots her. And then, of course, they have the fake out of like, oh, who did he actually shoot? But you know he shot Mrs. Loomis there.
Right.
And then, you know, oh, turns out Gail's alive. And so they drag her out of the pit. It's like, are you okay? She's like, no, I got shot. Which I love that line.
Yeah.
It's a good line. And then she has like the gun there. And then they're all staring at, you know, Mrs. Loomis being like, I think she might come back. Or whatever. And then all of a sudden, Mickey pops up screaming, going, ah!
Yeah.
And both Gail and Sidney just unload Pulp Fiction him back into the afterlife. Just...
Yeah, I thought that was funny. I would have preferred if Mickey just like groaned or something and then they shot him, or like tried to get up and then they shot him a bunch. I thought
that would have been more funny. Just
like she tried to grab a knife or something and then they just unload. That would have been funnier and more effective. But the fact that he was just like wooga booga booga,
yeah, just pops up screaming, going like some jump scare. And then I do find it funny that Sydney's like, do you think she's dead? I don't know.
Yeah.
Now she is.
Sanest horror protagonist.
Yes.
Yeah, to go for the double tap.
Absolutely double tap. And then, you know, it's getting to the resolution where, you know, it's like, oh, you know, the killer's done, you know, like usual happy ending stuff. And then Dewey's alive. Again.
Yeah, they really were just like, oh, well, we gotta make this a franchise, so let's keep some characters alive.
Yeah, we'll just kill off Randy, the one who was the strongest. And then I find the ending scene a little stupid. Where, you know, it's like Sidney walking out and then all the interviewers are coming up, you know. I do think it's a sweet moment, whatever you want to call it, but whenever, you know, the cameraman comes back for Gail, so it's like, yeah, I'm here for the story and stuff, and then she's like, nah, I'm going with Dewey. You know, like drops the story and just goes back. So I thought that was nice. But then, like, whenever all the people are trying to interview Sidney Prescott, she's like, talk to Joseph. He's the one you want to talk to. And they were like, oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, and they were going
just not talk to the sole survivor.
Yeah, and then Joseph's like, reporters, please, one at a time.
You have to pay me for an interview.
Yes, exactly. And then it just shows Sidney walking on college campus with a not so great song as they zoom out and look at how nice the campus is.
Yeah.
That's the movie.
That is the movie. They wrap everything up with a nice little bow, but it's just not satisfying.
It's not. It's really not. And again, it's like, I would give it a 5, but comparatively to other films I've seen on this show that I've given a 5, I'm like, I feel like I'd be discrediting them.
I give it a 5 just because I feel like it is paced well, it is creative enough, it is has enough interesting characters and lines and dialogue and stuff that it does it for me, but it's just so mediocre that it ends up also not surpassing a 5 because it's like an average. It's dead middle. This is a 5, you know?
Yeah. For me, it's like one of those things that I enjoy how creative the first one is, that I feel like the creativity is still existent, but again, you only get a couple of those creative moments and just a whole lot of nothing. Because especially towards the end of the film, I'm just like, I just kind of want this film to be over by now. Like, by the point that Dewey and Gail are sneaking onto campus to find a VCR player, I'm just like, oh my gosh, this goes on forever. I felt like I haven't seen Ghostface in forever.
That is where it started to sort of drag for me. And then, yeah, that whole ending scene, I was just like, all right, let's wrap this up.
Yeah, so it's still a fine film. Don't get me wrong. I'm only harsh because I love the first one so much. I think that's where it comes for me there. Because it's still, like, I still give it a 4.5. Because as compared to something like Hellraiser 2... I just find there's a lot more stuff to get excited about, and
Yeah.
less things to get like super mad about.
Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah. Anyways, so anything else you want to talk about this film?
No, I would love to talk about our next film.
All right, we're going to talk about the next film here. So
Yeah, you
this
teased
next film is a film from our time. You know, like basically, I'm trying to remember the exact year. I don't want to sound like a klutz here, but I want to say it was 2014 whenever it came out. Nope, 2013. See? Yes, it came out in 2013. And it focuses on an idea.
Okay.
An idea about how to make America a better place. If there was something you did once every year...
Purge?
Yes, it is the Purge. Yes, it is time to celebrate the Purge coming up here. So thank you all so much for listening to this episode, and we'll see y'all again next time when we're popping the scary with the Purge. Purge. I want to purge Scream 2 out of my mind.
Oh no.
Not really, just kidding. I love you, Scream 2, except not really. Do better, please. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube, Castbox, or iTunes platforms to stay up to date when new episodes drop. To see what Aaron and I are up to, check out our respective Twitter accounts. For me, it is @CoalkirkVA, and for Aaron, it is @AnimalGameDev. Thank you all so much for listening to our podcast. We'll speak to you all again next time when we're popping the scary.